Freedom and democracy are under attack. The American people need to know we're facing a different enemy than we have ever faced. This enemy hides in shadows and has no regard for human life.
President Bush speaking just moments ago to the country, saying that what happened yesterday was more than an act of terror. It is an act of war, and assuring Americans that the enemy will not change our way of life, will not restrict our freedoms. An enemy can hide, he said, but not forever. Welcome back now at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah, clearly a tougher speech than he gave last night when as we noted, the president basically was coming forth to reassure Americans and to bond with those who had lost someone. This morning, talking about conducting business as usual, but on a heightened state of alert. Yeah. We've been here all morning. We keep giving the numbers of what we do know, and if we're telling you things you do know, bear with us, because we're simply trying to make sure that everybody who is joining in progress is completely caught up. So here's the latest. Rescue efforts are continuing this morning. Victims have been using cell phones, we are told, to call search teams from at the bottom of some of that rubble, so the search is continuing. This morning, several people have been pulled from the rubble alive, and so the hope continues for many of the people in the southern tip of Manhattan who are buried beneath what was the World Trade Center. Still, the death toll is expected to be in the thousands. We still don't have a grasp on just how many people we're talking about, but the number could be frightening by the time it's done. We do know for a fact that 266 people were on board the 4 hijacked planes, that 3 of which were used as missiles on the World Trade Center and on the Pentagon, 1 of which crashed in Pennsylvania. Pentagon officials say no more survivors are expected to be pulled from the building there. And as I think you know, U.S. stock markets are closed today. The FAA still has all the airlines grounded today. Those may open at noon, although I think Bob Orr earlier said that's unlikely. Exactly when they'll reopen, we don't know. Exactly when the stock market may reopen, we don't know, but it could be as early as tomorrow. As Jane noted, President Bush addressed the nation just a few moments ago about the terrorist attacks. Bill Plantis, the White House, with a little more on that. Bill?
Brian, good morning. The president came early to the Oval Office and then met with his National Security Council. And it was at the end of that meeting that the president addressed this statement to the American people live.
Just completed a meeting with our national security team, and we've received the latest intelligence updates. The deliberate and deadly attacks which were carried out yesterday against our country were more than acts of terror. They were acts of war. This will require our country to unite in steadfast determination and resolve. Freedom and democracy are under attack. The American people need to know we're facing a different enemy than we have ever faced. This enemy hides in shadows and has no regard for human life. This is an enemy who preys on innocent and unsuspecting people, then runs for cover. But it won't be able to run for cover forever. This is an enemy that tries to hide, but it won't be able to hide forever. This is an enemy that thinks its harbors are safe, but they won't be safe forever. This enemy attacked not just our people, but all freedom-loving people everywhere in the world. The United States of America will use all our resources to conquer this enemy. We will rally the world. We will be patient. We'll be focused, and we will be steadfast in our determination. This battle will take time and resolve, but make no mistake about it, we will win. The federal government and all our agencies are conducting business, but it is not business as usual. We are operating on heightened security alert. America is going forward, and as we do so, we must remain keenly aware of the threats to our country. Those in authority should take appropriate precautions to protect our citizens. But we will not allow this enemy to win the war by changing our way of life or restricting our freedoms. This morning, I am sending to Congress a request for emergency funding authority so that we are prepared to spend whatever it takes to rescue victims, to help the citizens of New York City and Washington, D.C. respond to this tragedy, and to protect our national security. I want to thank the members of Congress for their unity and support. America is united. The freedom-loving nations of the world stand by our side. This will be a monumental struggle of good versus evil, but good will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
In this speech this morning, the president has significantly upped the ante by referring to these not just as acts of terror, but acts of war, echoing something that was said earlier this morning by the Secretary of State, Colin Powell. No wonder he allowed no questions at the end. He obviously wanted that to sink in. And one other item, Bryant, we believe from what the government and its spokesman have said that they consider this attack over. They considered it well planned and well coordinated, but they believe that the threat is over because the attack has been carried out. They're not looking for anything more at this point.
All right, Bill, thanks very much. We'll take size of relief where we can get them. Thank you. It's 11:06. Jane?
Brian, hospitals are still receiving victims of the attacks on the World Trade Center as more survivors are being rescued from the debris this morning. Emily Sine is at Bellevue Hospital in New York with more on that. Emily, good morning.
Good morning, Jane. Well, that's right. We still see the occasional ambulance going by. We are aware of one victim, Port Authority police officer who has been hospitalized here. In the meantime, family members, many family members walk around handing us photocopies like this of relatives and loved ones that they are looking for. The doctors and nurses here assure us that they have ample staff, ample supplies, ample blood on hand to handle whatever comes their way. However, in the few moments and hours after the attack yesterday morning, it was a different story.
Don't worry.
It was a chaotic scene in New York as rescue workers delivered the wounded to area hospitals. For the victims, it was a nightmare.
I was screaming because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I had all the debris, concrete, everything fall on top.
There were a lot of penetrating wounds initially. We had penetrating chest wounds. We had penetrating injuries through the legs.
But amidst the carnage, the medical community of New York was well prepared.
We have extra staff on duty. Everybody's been really very helpful, and all of our staff and patients, we couldn't even get our staff to go home last night.
Doctors at St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan treated more than 300 serious injuries, many of them people who escaped the towers shortly before they collapsed.
Can you breathe better now?
After the towers fell, doctors began to see more emergency workers who went in to help those trapped in the towers.
What was it like?
Horrible. It's like hell. You don't want to know.
The whole building just collapsed on us.
In the nation's capital, victims of the Pentagon air crash were airlifted to hospitals in nearby Virginia. In New York, the casualties reported so far seem to be injuries. But while fears are growing about the final death toll, no one is giving up the search.
We're all expecting to see a lot of people who hopefully have survived this and who might be buried under the rubble. The World Trade Centers go way down underground. Apparently there's 10 levels. And I have no idea how far down this went, and we're hoping.
That is one reason why it may be several weeks before we know the number of fatalities from this attack, and why we are not seeing casualties so far being brought here as we await the rescue efforts now to get those people out of the rubble. Jane?
Well, Emily, hospitals were expecting their heaviest wave of casualties this morning, so you're saying that has not happened yet?
Not here at Bellevue. We have seen only the occasional ambulance, and we know of one patient who has been admitted, who was told to us in a press conference a short time ago. But no, we have not seen large numbers of casualties so far. Jane?
And still, Emily, an extraordinary need for blood this morning.
At this hospital, they are saying that they have doubled the supply that they need so far, and they would like to schedule people for appointments to donate. What's happening around the rest of the country are blood drives to shore up any needed blood that might be needed as this tragedy unfolds, and we see exactly where we stand as far as casualties.
Okay.
Jane?
Emily Sine at Bellevue Hospital in New York. Emily, thanks again. Earlier this morning, I spoke with a California woman whose son was on the United Airlines flight that was hijacked on Tuesday and later crashed in Pennsylvania. I asked Alice Hoagland what she said to her son when he called her from the airplane.
Yes, he called at about 6:45 in the morning here. We were all in bed. Kathy, my sister-in-law, Mark's aunt, spoke to him first. The first thing he said to her was that he loves us very much. And Kathy responded, well, we love you, Mark. And then he told her that he was on United Flight 93, and that there were 3 men aboard who had taken control of the aircraft, and that they say they have a bomb. He said, and Kathy ran and got me, and he said, Mom, this is Mark Bingham, giving me his last name, and he said, I want to let you know that I love you very much. And I told him, well, we love you, Mark. And I'm on a flight from Newark to San Francisco, and there are 3 guys that have taken over the aircraft, and they say they have a bomb. They didn't mention any. He didn't have time to mention any other weapons that they may have. I asked him, Mark, who are these people? And he became distracted, didn't answer the question, and then we were cut off. So I didn't get an answer to the question. This all transpired maybe 10 to 12 minutes before the plane went down. We were on the phone with him a total of about 3 minutes, I guess.
Was he able, what did you hear in his voice? Was he scared? He must have been terrified.
He was calm. He was frightened. He was composed. He was trying to convey a message, an urgent message, and not draw attention to himself. I felt that. I hope it didn't result in worse treatment for him. Mark's a very proactive guy. He's a real take-charge guy.
Well, you mentioned that, and you've said that you think your son might have done something that might have helped that flight in some way. What was it?
Yes, he was sitting forward in the aircraft. It was not a very full aircraft. I know from past experience with him that he will try to act in a situation that is an emergency situation. He'll do something. We have it from other sources that another man called. His wife told him that they were going to try to do something, and one passenger was already dead, and they were going to try to do something to thwart these guys. I hope Mark was able to take part in that. And you note that Flight 93 was the only flight that did not make it to some target destination. I'm hoping, we all here hope very much that perhaps the passengers did have a role in that, and that Mark was able to take an active role in stopping these people from killing people on the ground.
Alice Hoagland, I really appreciate your time this morning, and my best to you and your family as you continue through this.
Thank you very much.
It is 11:13 Eastern Time now. Bryant?
All right, Jane, thanks very much. A CBS News poll out this morning finds that Americans believe better intelligence and security measures could have prevented Tuesday's tragedies. 80% of those polled are paying very close attention to the news. When asked if the attacks were another Pearl Harbor, 60% said yes. More than half of those polled, 57%, expect Tuesday's attacks to lead to a war. A majority of Americans, 66%, support U.S. retaliation against whomever is responsible, and 20% are opposed. More than half say they are very confident that those responsible for the terrorist attacks will be caught. Bob Blitzer is a former FBI domestic terrorism chief. He's in Washington. Mr. Blitzer, good morning.
Good morning.
There are a lot of Americans who are angry this morning, justifiably so, about the attack. But an awful lot of them are asking, why couldn't we have known? Why shouldn't we have known? Should we have?
That's really a difficult question, but just let me say, Bryant, that this particular target has been a very difficult target, very diffuse. And we certainly, when I was at the FBI, we certainly tried to collect as much as we could domestically. And of course, we relied on the CIA to collect outside the United States.
Was there too much of a reliance on the technological end of intelligence as opposed to the human end?
This is a question that I think is going to be closely examined.
What's your view?
My view is probably the human is in need of improvement, and I certainly saw it when I was there. But I've got to say to you, Bryant, it's the most difficult form of intelligence collection, but it's the most important, because if you have someone on the ground, if you have them telling you what's going on inside the organization, it's your best chance to prevent attacks such as this.
But we're hearing from overseas that there are various people who were close to various Arab intelligence people who had heard rumblings of this, that the attack was imminent within a matter of weeks. If they knew, shouldn't we have known?
We should have known. You would hope we would have the kind of liaison in place with those services that would give us that kind of warning. But many, many times, Bryant, it's not specific information. It's information that's very broad in nature. As some kind of an attack is coming, you don't know how, you don't know when, and you don't know where. So, you know, I saw many of these kinds of threats over the years, and certainly if you had specificity, you could ratchet up your security. But many, many times, we just didn't know how it was going to occur.
Can we defend ourselves in the future against attacks like these? And if so, what do we have to do?
Well, I'll tell you, an attack like this, given the magnitude of the attack, the skill of the attack, I don't know how you protect against it. I think there's going to have to be a lot of examination of our borders, how we let people into the United States. Many of the same questions that we've struggled with over many years have yet to be answered, particularly in a free and open society. It's just difficult. But again, there's going to be an awful lot of certainly second-guessing, examination, and hopefully new ways to protect ourselves will come out of it.
Sounds like you think we're going to have to be more xenophobic than we were. I mean, that's scary.
It's really a difficult situation. We certainly aren't going to lift civil liberties over this. I mean, that's just not going to happen. We just need to focus more. We certainly need to, I think, improve our human collection and try to find out if there are new systems and techniques out there that can help us better defend ourselves in the future.
We have all been talking about how the world will never be the same after what happened yesterday. Use your crystal ball for me a little bit. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, in terms of security alone, how will we be different?
I think technology is going to play a greater role, Bryant. I think certainly as we're looking at people and goods coming in and out of this country, I think technology is going to play a greater role in how we look at people and things that are coming in here. Certainly the whole aviation situation is going to have to be looked at again. There's going to have to be better aviation controls. Again, maybe that's more technology. Maybe there's more, it's more people intensive. In terms of intelligence collection, there's got to be better, in my view, better threat analysis and better threat warning. And believe me, that's a difficult thing to do. But I believe that the intelligence community is once more going to have to look at how we can predict these things and how we can defeat them before they get here.
All right. Bob Blitzer, I appreciate the input. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. It's 11:19, Jane.
Brian, after the first complete shutdown of air travel in this nation, the FAA hopes to reopen the nation's airports at noon Eastern Time today. Sandra Hughes is at Los Angeles International Airport this morning with the latest on that. Sandra, good morning.
Good morning, Jane. Well, Los Angeles airport officials just held a press conference a few minutes ago, and they say they still don't really have any idea what the FAA is going to tell them about reopening the airport, but what they're pleading for is that people just stay home. Don't come down here. The airport is closed. Now, in contrast to the very eerie silence at the airport overnight, Air Force fighter jets were blasting across Southern California air, and what you're looking at right now, I think, are some pictures of the airport, which just looked like a ghost town. The terminals were closed. There were no people in them. The screens you normally look for, arrivals and departures, had all gone to hash. But as I was saying, in contrast to that, Air Force pilots, fighter pilots, were blasting through the air here, and it was so noisy that many people called the police because they were very concerned about the noise, because they knew all the flights out of Los Angeles had been grounded yesterday. Well, according to NORAD, now that's the North American Air Defense, the Air Force is patrolling the skies over Southern California, and that those noises actually should be reassuring to people, although they really weren't. Now, the only other flight to take off out of LA yesterday was an emergency medical flight taking supplies back east. As I said, while no one here exactly knows when the FAA is going to give the all clear for reopening the airport, Alaska Airlines has said that they are hopeful, they will be able to get back going around noon Pacific time, but that would only be at about 25% capacity. So at this point, LA officials say they are just waiting to hear for word from the FAA that they believe they're going to pinpoint primary airports across the country first to reopen, and that it's going to be a very slow recovery process. Back to you.
Sandra, the families whose loved ones were on those planes, they were at the airport yesterday. Did they spend most of the day there being counseled and, receiving care?
Well, Jane, I spent the first few hours yesterday morning inside the airport, and oddly enough, we didn't see a large number of victims' families arriving there, just a few folks, and they were immediately surrounded by police and whisked up to a private room. But what they did is the airline set up 2 hotels near the airport, and I think that's where most people went. They spent the evening with grief counselors from the airlines, from the Salvation Army. We were told that the mood there was very somber, not hysterical, but just very sad.
All right.
Jane.
Sandra Hughes in Los Angeles. Sandra, thank you so much. Let's go now to Cynthia Bowers at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Cynthia, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jane. You know, there is that talk of U.S. airspace opening at noon, but there's a growing uncertainty, like Sandra said, about how many commercial flights will actually be flying today. We're told passengers arriving at O'Hare are now being turned away. Delta's website this morning indicated that that airline would not be flying before 6 tonight at the earliest. Canadian Airlines flights have been suspended, and London's Heathrow flights to the United States have been canceled. Also, we're told that D.C. airports are open for passengers to retrieve bags. That doesn't sound like flights are going to be leaving any time around the noon hour there. Getting this air traffic system from totally shut down to up and running is going to be a daunting task. As you recall, yesterday, hundreds of flights were ordered to land at the nearest airport. That means hundreds of planes and their crews are totally out of position to get back where they need to be. The other enormous concern is security and what the airlines can do literally overnight to enhance it, to make sure there aren't any more attacks. Transportation Secretary Norma Mineta has banned curbside check-in. There will be more use of high-tech explosive scanners at the airports as your bags go through. Unticketed passengers will likely not be allowed to accompany passengers to the gates today, and there will be more passenger profiling to try to identify any possible terrorists. Now, a number of people around the country are wondering if any of those measures could have prevented what happened yesterday, and the response is likely not. Jane?
Cynthia, have you got a feeling from travelers there about them actually wanting to go up in the air? I'm not sure the day after something like this, I would want to fly.
We heard some people last night that talked about the fact that they were scared to fly, that there is a lack of security. We talked to a young man this morning that had driven here from New Orleans. He's now driving home to Milwaukee, says that he's going to drive everywhere he can from now on. He works as an air parts delivery man, and he flies a lot, but he said that he's noticed that security at a number of airports is lax, and he's not really sure that there's anything we can do to prevent the weapons that got on board the planes yesterday from getting on any time in the future.
Cynthia, we heard from Sandra Hughes in Los Angeles that fighter jets were patrolling the air around Los Angeles. Anything like that in Chicago?
Well, I haven't seen any fighter jets overhead here. We did have fighter jets flying over Chicago yesterday, and they were, met on the ground with hundreds of police officers. The police chief said that the police will be on call 24 hours a day until this crisis is really considered to be over.
All right, Cynthia Bowers at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Cindy, thanks.
Thanks.
It's 11:24 now. Some viewers will cut away for local news. We'll continue with our coverage after this.
Good morning, I'm Andrea Rowe.
And I'm Mike Buchanan. We have new information coming into the newsroom about the terrorist attacks on Washington, D.C. and up in New York City, and the search for clues. It stretches up and down the East Coast.
We begin this update with a live report from Lauren Ashburn at USA Today headquarters. Lauren?
Andrea and Buck, we have talked to the FBI here at USA Today. They tell us they have 700 leads. None is credible, not one of them. Well, they have also told us that this investigation goes up and down the East Coast, from southern Florida to Boston. And here in Washington, D.C., we have learned that the FBI has executed a search warrant. Search warrants have also been executed in Daytona Beach and Hollywood. Andrea, Buck.
Lauren, thank you very much. The extraordinary security precautions around the U.S. Capitol are causing some serious backups. Monica Samtani has that part of the story.
The perimeter around the U.S. Capitol has been closed for a few hours now. That includes streets as 3rd Street Northwest, Louisiana Avenue, Massachusetts Avenue, 2nd Street Northeast, and D Street. We'll go over to a map. It seems to be affecting Constitution Avenue the most. As you leave RFK, you want to be aware that there will be delays as you head for the U.S. Capitol. That, again, seems to be most affected. That perimeter around the U.S. Capitol will remain closed indefinitely. Be aware of that this morning. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Monica. Eric Dodd is in the thick of things in downtown Washington. Eric, what are workers telling you there?
Yeah, a lot of folks showing up for work today. Nervously, though, a little concerned, but also thinking it's important to show back up today, supporting President Bush last night and his trying to keep the wheels in motion, keep the wheels of government moving today. Still trying to process the horrifying pictures. A lot of folks getting the headlines today out of the newspaper boxes here, and a lot of folks we spoke with today almost near tears when they want to talk about it. But we did meet a few folks down here. We're outside the Department of Transportation, the FAA on this side, and workers decided during their lunch break they were going to go and give blood. A lot of folks trying to find some way to show their sorrow and their support during this time of crisis in this country. But folks, I'm surprised this morning traffic started a lot more traffic than we expected early on this morning, but a lot of people didn't take that liberal leave today. A lot of folks showing up for work on this day after. Back to you.
Eric, you're right next to FAA. Still no word on whether the airspace will be open by noon?
We haven't heard anything. We will hopefully be able to get inside there and check on that for you.
All right, Eric. Eric Dodd reporting from downtown Washington.
At the Pentagon, the effort to put out the fire goes on, even as the headquarters of America's military is open for business. Leslie Foster is there at the Pentagon. Leslie?
Bucket, Andrea, you can see the fire is still burning. You can still see smoke billowing. It's clearly safe to say that this fire is far from under control at this point. You heard the Arlington Fire Chief Ed Plogger say in a press conference that this is very difficult for fire crews out here, partly because of the Pentagon's construction. There is thick masonry that firefighters have to cut through. More equipment has been brought here from D.C. and Alexandria to replenish here. Air tanks have to be replenished. Water has to be refilled. Crews are being rotated here. About 400 firefighters out here. Again, a stubborn fire. We'll keep you posted.
Right now, America's allies are coming to her defense. They're considering a strong show of support for the United States. We'll have more on Eyewitness News at noon.
Ah, the pretzel. A great tasting but predictable little snack. Not anymore. Introducing a new honey mustard flavored sensation from Rolled Gold. New Rolled Gold honey mustard pretzels. Tiny twist, big honey mustard taste.
Being in business, I know you've got to have a plan to succeed. That's why, as a candidate for governor, I've offered a detailed action plan for Virginia's future. To improve education and transportation, create jobs, preserve open space and protect our environment. We can do it with more effective management and real fiscal responsibility. To find out more, call or visit our website, because you deserve more than political promises. You deserve a plan and results. And that's what my campaign for governor is all about.
All right, overactive bladder may not be the most serious medical condition, but it sure is an inconvenience. Constantly interrupting your daily activities, always running for a bathroom, forever worrying about being caught unprepared. And road trips, not fun.
Now there's a research study testing an investigational medication to treat these symptoms. If you're a man or woman who's 18 or older and you suffer from overactive bladder, call 1-800-STUDY-44 to learn more about this study.
I hate that sign.
J.C. Hayward and Bert Schuck, tonight at 5 on 9 Eyewitness News.
At 11:30 on this morning after the worst terrorist attack in world history. You're looking at the scene as we point our cameras towards the southern tip of Manhattan, where the World Trade Center once stood just yesterday morning. Only now all we see coming from there is smoke and ash, and the search goes on for survivors and victims in the World Trade Center.
You can imagine the scene down there still. After all this time, smoke coming from the rubble. And rescuers are, in fact, pulling people who are alive from the rubble. So there is a bit of good news.
And also, as we noted earlier, there's some phone calls coming from beneath that rubble.
Cell phone calls, yes, that's right.
We've been telling people stay off their cell phones. In this case, it's actually helping. Hospitals, we are told, are still receiving the injured as more survivors are plucked from the rubble. Tracy Smith is at New York's Bellevue Hospital with a little bit of an update. Tracy, good morning.
Morning, Bryant. Yes, more people are continuing to come here to look for loved ones on the list of names of people who've been admitted here. Unfortunately, that list has really not grown all that much. Officials here are saying that they expected more people, and so far this morning, they've only had one more. And I've seen some of the same people that I saw yesterday at St. Vincent's Hospital, now here looking for loved ones with no luck.
All right, Tracy, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. As we've been reporting all morning, countless firefighters and police officers gave of themselves on Tuesday. In fact, many lost their lives. The incredible bravery of ordinary people shouldn't be overlooked either. When he learned of the disaster, filmmaker Gil Baker made his way through the chaos to see if he could help. And after volunteering all night, he returned to the site with his camera to document what he saw. First off, Gil, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Brian. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Good.
Where were you when it happened?
I was home. When the event took place, I was home. It was about 9:10. I got out of my apartment onto my bike, and
how far away were you?
I live at 37th Park.
Okay.
So I ran up to 87th Street to check on my nephew at school, and then I biked the 100 blocks back downtown.
And volunteered your services?
Volunteered my services.
What'd you do all day?
Well, the first thing I did was NYPD had me, they said, go to any intersection where traffic could go south and divert it. So I started diverting traffic. I had my bike with me and I was just directing traffic. And I had my whistle, which was always in my bike. When I'm biking in the city, I have it in case I need it. So that came in really handy. And then I heard about a triage center that was going to be set up at North Moore in Greenwich. Just heard that and headed over there to volunteer.
Yeah. Let me take a look at some of these films that you wound up shooting, because you took your camera and you just talk me through what I'm looking at here.
Well, that caught my eye, and this is the last of a fire at the building next door to the where the World Trade Center was.
This is evening.
At that address, yeah. There were dozens and dozens of emergency vehicles and police cars shattered.
Just buried.
Whoever was driving those cars did not, whoever had driven up in those cars did not exist. The fire department for the city, these guys are some of the most courageous people that I've ever seen. Everything was tipped. They're lying ladders up in pieces of concrete and steel and just risking their lives. This was smoking rubble that they're working on. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
What kind of shifts are these guys on down there? Are we talking 20 hours they were working yesterday?
I photographed guys who were sleeping who had been there for 13 hours right in the thick of it.
This is what's left of one of the towers. How many stories would you say that is?
That was probably 2.5 stories, maybe 3. Maybe 3.
That's the highest point?
That was the highest point. It's hard to believe.
And that's the other tower?
That's
One
Liberty.
Severn building,
yeah,
or is that One Liberty?
One Liberty.
Okay.
That was One Liberty across the street. A lot of windows blown out. When you're down there, Brian, Bryant. I'm sorry, Bryant. It's for about 10 blocks. You're walking on silt. It's the sheetrock that blew up. And when you looked up in the sky and saw, I found this out from the fire department, when you look up and see these billows of, it's sheetrock.
It's very hard for us, Gil, to, no matter how many times we've seen the footage, to understand the breadth of the scene. We know that the towers came down basically upon themselves, but how wide an area of devastation are we talking about?
I think at least 10 blocks total, say a good 5 or 6 blocks on either side, north and south, east and west. When I was directing traffic at the intersection of Northmore and Greenwich, there was a Lieutenant John Wolfe, Manhattan South Task Force commander there, and he went over to a civil engineer and said, when number 7 World Trade Center goes, are we going to be safe here? We were 6 or 7 blocks away. And the civil engineer looked and said, I think so.
So we're talking about 10 blocks. When the towers came down,
yeah,
like I say, they basically crumbled into themselves.
Yeah.
Did they knock over any other structures, smaller structures, brownstones, stores?
That I can tell you from having been there afterwards, not as much as you would have thought. There was a Burger King where they had set up a food hospitality setup for the firemen and everything. That building was damaged. But the damage wasn't as bad as you think, because right across the street from the World Trade Center is One Liberty, where they set up, finally, the final triage on the east side of the structures was set up there. That building was structurally sound as far as anyone at the police department knew. The wiring was okay. The windows were blown out, but they never would have set up a triage there if that building hadn't stood, and that's a big building. It's not the World Trade Center, but it's a big building.
Yeah. You going to go back today?
I am.
What are you going to do?
Whatever I can.
Gil Baker. Gil, thanks so very much.
You're welcome,
Brian. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's 11:36. Jane?
Thanks, Bryant. We're going to go now to Mr. Carlos Perez, who's the executive director of Bellevue Hospital in New York City. Mr. Perez, good morning.
Good morning.
I understand you just finished a press conference. Can you tell us what the latest is there?
Yeah, the latest is that we have received throughout the day, yesterday, about 230 patients. Somewhere around 76 firefighters were brought here, about another 22 policemen. Most were treated and released. We have approximately 40 patients still in the hospital as we speak. This morning, about 8:30 in the morning, we did receive the last patient here, which was a Port Authority policeman. He is currently in the OR with serious conditions.
How overwhelmed are the doctors and nurses there, Mr. Perez? I mean, is the emergency room packed with people?
No, actually, we're fine. We can handle up to several hundred individuals beyond our capacity. So we're fine. We have more than adequate staff. We have staff throughout yesterday, and we plan to be in it for a good while. So we're well prepared in terms of staffing as well as supplies. Blood supply, in fact, as we speak now, are being replenished. We have approximately 200 to 300 individuals who are inside the hospital donating blood. We actually have started to schedule blood donors for the next 2 to 3 days, just to make sure that this carries us forward as needed. But we're more than adequately prepared at this point in time.
Mr. Perez, were doctors setting up triage units yesterday outside, or were patients mainly being brought into the hospital for treatment?
We actually did both. We had several teams of doctors and nurses at different triage sites throughout the city, as well as also accepting the referrals that were coming into the hospital. Today we have continued pretty much the same, and right now we have one team made up of 12 individuals, made up of surgeons and nurses downtown at the site.
Can you explain, can you try to put into words the emotions of the people that are in your hospital right now?
I'm sorry, that's the staff or patients?
The people who've been brought into the hospital. Is there any way to put into words what they're feeling right now?
I think the only way that I can capture it would be, it's just stunned. You know, we have a team that has been set up since yesterday. In fact, I should add that we have psychiatric specialists down at the triage sites. We have set up a similar triage site here at the hospital. So we have seen approximately 14 families where they have needed psychological intervention. But it's devastating. It's devastating.
Mr. Carlos Perez, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And a good day to you. It is 11:40 Eastern Time now. One of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center was American Airlines Flight 11. The pilot was John Ogonowski. Earlier, I spoke with his brother Jim and asked him how he found out about the crash.
I was personally traveling to Logan Airport at the time, just before leaving the home. I had turned on the news to see what was going on, and I noticed the first reports of an incident at the trade towers. I immediately called my sister-in-law. Her parents were visiting from Long Island, and they were getting ready to go back to Long Island yesterday. My shuttle picked me up. I was en route to Logan Airport. We stopped at a hotel where we do a shuttle transfer, and I went in to catch the news for a few minutes. I saw the second airplane. I heard it was an American Airlines flight out of Boston. I immediately called my sister-in-law again, and that's how I found out. It was only a matter of 20 minutes or so.
Did your brother Jim ever express any concern about airport security?
No, he didn't. He loved flying, and he never expressed a concern. You know, flying-wise, it's a lot safer than just getting into your car every day and driving. So we always viewed it as pretty safe.
Can you tell us about your brother Jim? I know you've called him a hero.
I did. He was a loving dad. He had 3 girls, Laura, Caroline, and Mary, and his wife Peg. He had an extended family, numerous brothers-in-laws, brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles. We live in a close community. For a large part of us live in Dracut, all within a few miles of each other. And it's not unusual to see numerous uncles, aunts, and cousins getting together daily just as a little dewdrop in at his house or my house or my parents' house.
How are his wife and 3 daughters doing?
I think we're all still in shock, maybe some denial. Knowing the airline community, you go to work one day and then many times you come back the next. I think today will be equally as hard because today would have been the day John would have been returning.
John had over 20 years' experience flying as a pilot. Have you spoken with American Airlines or with investigators about what happened yesterday?
2 representatives of American Airlines came to the home, to his home. They were very professional, shared any information that we asked. We didn't ask much other than the obvious.
Your family obviously is shattered by this. What would you like people to remember about your brother, Jim?
He was a great guy. My older brother, my sister calls him a saint. He was a guy that anybody who met liked. He was a natural-born leader. He took initiatives his big legacy is saving a lot of land in Dracut. But the love of family, the love of land, the love of flying, all those will be his legacy.
Do you have any desire to come to New York to see what's going on here?
No. No, I don't.
Your family?
I don't believe so. I don't think we need to see that. No one has expressed a desire to see that.
And any interest in speaking with other family members, those who might have been on the plane or who are going through what you are at this moment?
At this point, no. No. We have an extended family of brothers and brother-in-laws and sisters throughout the country that we're just trying to get a hold of and get them back to the local community so we can all grieve together.
Well, Jim Ogonowski, I appreciate your time, and as you continue with that grieving process, our thoughts and prayers are with you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think we need to remain united as a country and support the president and take any type of action that he deems fit to get the cowards that did something like this to us. Thank you.
Jim Ogonowski, thank you. Flight 11 was en route from Boston to Los Angeles with 92 people on board. 11:44 Eastern Time. Bryant.
All right, Jane, we're going back once again to White House correspondent Bill Plant, who can give us an idea of what's ahead on the President's Day. Bill?
Well, Brian, the White House, I think we can say without risk of sounding cynical, is trying very hard to get several messages out today. Just now, there was a meeting of the president with the congressional leadership of both parties. And if we can play that video for you, you'll see sitting around the table Senator Daschle and Senator Lott, Speaker Hastert, and Minority Leader Gephardt. All there. The message is we are unified. We are in this together as a country. There's no more petty squabbling, no more at each other's throats over the budget. This is something much bigger. Another message out of here today from the president himself: this is more than an act of terror, it is an act of war. And that, of course, sets the stage for us to, as it were, go to war in retaliation once they find out who did it. And then finally, the message was the government is open for business, we won't hide, and they can't scare us. Brian?
Bill, I can't believe that anyone there is talking about it openly, but how long realistically can the president expect this spirit of political unity to last?
I think it'll last for a while, Brian. This is such a heinous crime that you'll have people here pulling together in a way that you don't normally see. If you stop and think about what it was they were fighting over the day before yesterday, that is, whether or not they would have to dip into the IOUs, which make up the really non-existent Social Security surplus, to fund various programs that both sides want, different programs for each side, it all pales in relation to what has happened now. I think you can expect this to last a good while.
Well, it pales for now until the markets open, and then we see what happens, and if they take a severe dip, it may not seem so pale. Fair enough?
Well, that's fair enough, but I think that, again, you're going to see the politicians reacting to the public mood, which is for some kind of action to avenge what has happened.
Yeah. Bill, answer this for me if you can. Who has the president's ear right now? I mean, obviously he's taking a lot of counsel, but is it Rove? Is it Cheney? Is it Rice? Is it Powell? Is it Rumsfeld?
Well, we know that he has spent a lot of time with Rumsfeld, with Powell, with Rice, and with Cheney. All people he respects, all people he can be expected to count on. And I imagine the vice president, who was, of course, here all day yesterday in the secure area of the Situation Room and teleconferencing and telephone calling with the president. And we know that he talked to his father from Air Force One yesterday. So I would say that the president is getting all the advice he wants. Whether it's all he needs, I can't say.
Yeah, and whether or not he'll feel compelled to act anytime soon, we also don't know.
Don't know, but I would bet against it. I've been wrong before, but it doesn't seem likely. I think they'll want to know that they can say that they've actually accomplished something here. They remember what President Clinton did in 1993 when he did some missile strikes in Afghanistan and really hit nothing. It was a joke then, and it's still a joke. They don't want to repeat that.
Yeah, except Americans will want to see something happen, and it'll be interesting to see how they hold Americans at bay while they still try to orchestrate some kind of response. Final note, Bill. Presidents are defined by events of their time. Early as it is in his administration, is this George W. Bush's defining moment?
It could well be. You can see that there's an effort on the part of this White House to address this in a way that's presidential. You can watch the ramp up in his statements from yesterday morning down in Shreveport, Louisiana, well, first in Sarasota, Florida, then last night, and now this morning. They're definitely positioning him to do something. They want him to look like he's a leader. This could well be the moment, in spite of the fact that it's so early on.
Yeah. All right, Bill, I know you've got a long day ahead of you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
See you tomorrow.
All right. All morning long, we have been racking and re-racking the images that have now become all too familiar to most Americans and on the American conscience, part of the American nightmare now, as it turns out. So before we disappear, we want to re-rack all of those images again, show you some of the powerful and unforgettable, terrible memories from a Tuesday we won't soon forget.
We saw a plane coming very low from this direction, and everyone said, wow, that plane is very, very low. And then we heard the crash. We ran to the window.
What's this other jet doing? What's this other jet doing?
Right now?
There's another one. Another plane just hit.
Oh, my God! Jesus Christ!
Oh, my God. Another plane has just hit. It hit another building.
And I heard a roar, and I looked up, and I saw the second plane hit. Had to be a commercial-sized airliner. I'm seeing bodies falling out of buildings.
And I look up, and the tower just starts crumbling down. And everybody in the street just stops and started crying and bawling.
Oh, they're joking!
We heard a rumble
like I've never heard before, and a firefighter ran towards me. We ran as fast as we could. I fell down. He picked me up and slammed me into a wall.
It collapsed. The top floors collapsed down. I saw it blow and then ran like hell, thank God. Make a hole, give him room to breathe. 1, 2, 3. Chaos. It's just chaos out here, it really is. Okay. Where?
We was in an explosion. We was in the lobby, and the third explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What was it like? What was it like?
Horrible.
It's like hell. You don't want to know.
The whole building just collapsed on us.
So the Twin Towers fall. It's amazing.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. Terrorism against our nation will not stand.
A terrible, terrible tragedy has befallen my nation, but it has befallen all the nations of this region, all the nations of the world. Once again, we see terrorism. We see terrorists, people who don't believe in democracy, people who believe that with the destruction of buildings, with the murder of people, they can somehow achieve a political purpose.
First of all, I am offering my condolences, the condolences of the Palestinian people.
What type of debris did you see?
Very little debris.
Did you hear anyone?
No, I didn't. There was really nothing left.
I used to work there. I got a lot of friends that's there. It hurts.
Nobody's safe. We're not safe.
I tell you what, it's a sad day for America. It really is.
Sad day for America, an unforgettable day for America, too.
See those pictures, they don't get any easier to look at.
No,
really.
No, and we've seen the same ones over and over. Let's see if we can't show you a different one anyway. Maybe it'll be of some comfort. I don't know. Take a look at this picture. This is the USS George Washington. You'll recall that yesterday the President ordered some ships out of Norfolk Naval Base. This is the USS George Washington. It is right now docked off Long Island. I don't know if that comes as comfort or more concern to a lot of folks, but that ship standing by, the entire naval group, I understand, was put out to sea. Whether to reduce the targets or not, we don't know.
That's an image you never thought you'd see.
No,
here in New York City.
Like yesterday of the F-16s over the nation's capital.
That's right.
Flying overhead, and there were some actually over Manhattan too yesterday. Which was pretty scary.
Say our thoughts and prayers are with everybody who's still waiting for word about family members or loved ones, still waiting for some good news this morning.
Yeah, and we also get a note here, Jane, that this morning a threat forced the evacuation of the United Nations. This day after the attacks on the World Trade Center, U.S. government and New York City authorities informed the UN Chief of Security of a specific threat against the UN at 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning. That's just about 3 hours ago. And as a precautionary measure, staff in the 39-story building were ordered to the basement or out of the building. Thankfully, we have no word of anything happening over there.
Evil has found us. I'm sorry to say, when President Bush said that last night, that evil has done this. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is at this point. And it's also important to remember, as Jane just said, that there are still people who are alive beneath the rubble. Before we can finish up the salvage operation down in the southern tip, there is a fire operation and a rescue operation that is taking place right now, and brave firemen and policemen are right now giving of themselves, trying to find survivors beneath the rubble of what was 1 and 2 World Trade Center.
Can underscore the need for blood as well, for people to get out and to give blood today for those who,
need it. I'm actually hearing, I got a message from someone that socks, oddly enough, and I'm not trying to be flip, socks are wanted by the firemen down there, that evidently if you've got some socks to bring, come on over to the Red Cross and donate them, they could be put to good use.
Our prayers are with you, folks. God bless you.
That about does it for us on this Wednesday morning, the morning after the worst terrorist attack in world history. CBS News coverage of Attack on America continues in just a moment with Dan Rather. For all of us here at The Early Show, thanks very much. Stay tuned. $11:55. Any questions we didn't answer?
Gosh, we went over so much. It seems like this 6 hours has gone by very quickly.
You wonder about people like Gil over there. How many people are normal New Yorkers who felt compelled to get out and do something?
It heartens you to see him. I mean, when I turned around and saw his helmet and his mask around his neck, I thought, by golly, you know, they're good people in this world.
Well, you know, New York prides itself on being a very resilient town in times like this. You weren't here during the time when they had a transit strike. And New Yorkers, by the millions, could be seen pouring across the bridges on foot, on bicycles, giving each other lifts and everything else. New Yorkers are a pretty resilient bunch. And my suspicion is that there's an awful lot of New Yorkers who took what happened yesterday as kind of a personal challenge.
Well, Brian, I don't think it's just New Yorkers. I think it's Americans who took it as a challenge. I mean, I got the sense throughout this morning as we were interviewing people who were here, people who were on the scene throughout this country, that there's a real sense of solidarity. Solidarity among people, among officials, among lawmakers. I mean, this is a time when America comes together, and you can feel that. You can feel that.
Yeah, I hope now they will be equipped to take the donations of blood. Yesterday there was a line wait of considerable time of like 3 hours because people were rushing to give blood, having heard the call.
Well, you said you went over and you yourself
66
were waiting
Amsterdam.
in line for a while.
And then they turned away. They said no. You know, we just didn't have the supplies needed. Hillary's already gone back over again today to give, and I suspect I'll wander over
You know,
there.
at times like this, it's like the Red Cross lady was saying, it's not just blood, although that's important. You were mentioning socks. I mean, money. Just call up and give a donation. That's really what would be useful.
You know, it's funny how you prioritize things. I mean, obviously our priority has been the devastation, the attack, the loss of life. The reality is there are an awful lot of people who have been rendered jobless and homeless by the tragedy on the southern tip of Manhattan. There are a lot of people whose homes no longer exist and who can't get near their homes. And there are a lot of people who are, like our friend Yusuf this morning, who counts himself lucky, but he's out of a job.
That's true, but he has his life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying there's an awful lot of needs involved.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
A lot of children who don't have moms and dads this morning.
Yeah, there are an awful lot of needs involved. The school systems are closed throughout the area. They're saying
Are the subway systems still closed?
No, the subway systems are operating.
Bridges and tunnels, I think, are open in New York.
Right.
That's right.
To limited passage in the city, into
Correct.
the city. Going
Correct.
out you can.
Correct.
Limited passage back into the city. Did you have much of a chore getting in this morning?
I didn't. I had a great driver who was there and ready to go.
Yeah, there was some difficulty evidently in a lot of the people getting into the city, people that normally help us get to work.
He couldn't go out of the city last night, so he spent the night in the city.
Oh, is that
so
right?
that he would be ready and able to take us this morning.
Yeah, yeah. So. This is a heck of a chore. Can we shoot the scenes outside once again, Don? Take a look at the scene out there. Look at this. This is 59th and 5th Avenue. That is a place right now around noontime, a source of great congestion, great noise, a lot of horn honking, and instead, look at that.
Streets are empty and the sidewalks are empty, but I got to tell you, outside our studio yesterday, as I was walking around, filled with people gathering around monitors. There's yesterday.
Yeah.
People just waiting for any bit of news.
Well, it's going to be continuing today. Because when we step aside, Dan Rather is going to step in and be continuing with complete CBS News coverage of Attack on America. And, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow morning, and I guess we needn't tell you what we'll be doing then. We'll be trying to bring it up to speed, and hopefully then we'll have some more numbers and hopefully some more lives that are pulled out of the rubble.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That would be good news.
That does it for us on this day. Dan Rather is next.
local news.